The enemy of my enemy remains my enemy. A point clearly deserving of some reiteration and expanding upon now that the avatar of everything that's been wrong with the last 15 years has re-emerged from the swamp that is blue sky, with Anita Sarkeesian appearing to side with gamers against censorship, against collective shout, and against the giant credit card companies like Visa and Mastercard. But do not for a second be fooled into thinking that there can be some sort of common cause here with the left. There is no such common ground. Anita Sarkeesian's opposition to collective shout is not the same as ours. In fact, the reasons are themselves not compatible in any way, shape, or form. So let me reiterate this and explain, because I know for a fact there is far too many people who still, for some reason, think that there can be an accord with our political opponents in this regard, and there simply cannot, due to a fundamental disagreement on what the problem here is. As we see someone give this brilliant book to the puritanical angry moms who bullied payment processors into all but banning porn games. I really hope someone starts a counter-campaign to fight this regressive puritanical nonsense. Anita Sarkeesian, like so many leftists, are clinging to the cope that Collective Shout is not a left-wing organization, but rather that it is conservative, that it is regressive, that it is puritanical, angry moms who are out to cancel not porn games, not games in general. She is not arguing against censorship here, she is arguing against their porn games, what endangers the left wing's progressivism. As here's the real big difference. We've talked about this at length before, so I'm not going to delve too deeply into it here, but very broadly speaking, we can divide the feminists into two camps. The old school feminists, that was a more unified movement around 2010, 14, etc., were the old enemies, our old foes that pushed a lot of this censorship nonsense into the real world to begin with, by simply saying, we women, we therefore deserve special treatment, and we deserve to be held in special regard over men. An argument that for a long time actually was received very positively by a lot of legislators. But there was then a rather large schism in the feminist movement, the divide between the progressives and the TERFs. Now, Anita Sarkeesian herself is a progressive. The general divide here is that the old-school feminist movement is, and still was, a female supremacist movement. That is what Collective Shout is. It is of the opinion that women should be placed above, well, pretty much anyone else, and should be given artificial protections against even things that they merely decide to be offensive, like pornography, which they deem to be violence against all women. Meanwhile, Anita Sarkeesian, a progressive, disputes the definition of woman. She believes that a man can be a woman, that feminism is about the liberation of all people to live fully realized lives. If trans people aren't included in that, it ain't feminism. Even as the reply here goes, feminism concerns females only. That is the core divide. Anita Sarkeesian views Collective Shout as a TERF organization. As again, I don't think we need to reiterate this, but Anita Sarkeesian does not like sexy video games. She has long decried the pornography of games like Bayonetta. She has long decried the abuses of women, the objectification of it, the male gaze, and so on and so on. And indeed, during the old-school feminist movement, they had enormous power by simply going, I am woman, and I am being attacked by men, to the point of, well, again, going to the European Union to talk about it. So, this is her attacking what she views as TERFs, old school feminists. And this will now be used as an opportunity to attempt to pivot back into the limelight. We're already seeing this amongst other companies, like Kotaku, for example, who's now saying the war over credit card censoring games is just getting started. They're now starting to use gamers as at the very least a neutral descriptive term, if not even a positive one, but their gamers are very, very, very different from our gamers. They fear for their progressive games, their gay sex simulators, their furry simulators, and so on. And again, I reiterate, I am of the opinion that all of this shit should be allowed, even the progressive pornography. They do not. That is the key divide. They don't like being censored themselves. This is the first moment where the progressives are actually feeling the effects of the very things they themselves argued for, as Anita Sarkeesian did vehemently for, damn near 8-9 years or something? She argued stridently for censorship again and again and again, but censorship against her opponents, which is exactly the same that she is doing here. I mean, right here, underneath her, she reposts Maureen Johnson. Every day she'd be like this for all of them, all the time, everywhere they go. They shouldn't be able to go out to eat, to relax, to vacation, to shop without someone making noise. In response to JD Vance having to move to an undisclosed location due to protest at the Vermont resort where he's skiing this weekend. This is still Anita Sarkeesian's actual beliefs. Now, I understand pointing to this and thinking it's funny, I get it, that it is funny because she is being burned by her very own arguments now, but do not again think for a second that there is common ground here. Anita Sarkeesian is not an ally. Kotaku is not an ally, no matter how much, and I guarantee they will try to argue this case in the near future. Bear you in mind now that a great deal of the people who were on the feminist left and then eventually on the progressive left, they weren't there because of firmly held convictions or particular political opinions or anything like that. Principles, as they have demonstrated again and again to not have any. They were there because it was the movement in ascendancy, because it had power that they wanted to use against their own opponents. When the time comes, a lot of these people will not hesitate a second to switch sides and simply say, oh no, we were on your side all along. This is already beginning to happen within Hollywood studios, pivoting back onto more traditional marketing, shall we say. There was a funny little clip of the Fantastic Four cast playing Marvel Heroes. Was it Marvel Heroes? You know, the rip-off of Overwatch in essence. That one. Was it Heroes? I think it was. And marveling at the sexy costumes, going like, oh la la, sexy costumes. This will be the switch. Hollywood never truly forgot the truism that sex sells, it was merely unpopular. They didn't want to fall out with the people in institutional power. Now that that starts to go away, they will flip, but it does not mean that we should forget and forgive everything that happened before, especially not with people that were active participants of this movement. Now, as I've talked about previously, there does need to be some sort of balance struck between reconciliation and absolute rejection, but I'm finding the reconciliation position to be more and more difficult to realistically see with the fact that we have different worldviews on this. Again, Anita Sarkeesian siding against censorship here is because she views Collective Shout as a TERF organization. To her, this is not a new target. This isn't a flip or a switch or a change in priorities. This is merely her targeting her old traditional enemy, as again seen from back in 2021 and previous posts therefore as well. These are not allies. These are not friends. These are not even people that we should view as means of expediency to attack a larger target. You can point out that it is funny that the very people who caused all of this, who indeed went to governments beseeching them to implement censorship, are now complaining against it because it is funny, but it is absolutely paramount that we do not begin viewing the left in any ways as allies or as harmless because of it. This is still the exact same woman with the exact same beliefs as previously. Do not allow them back into the warmth. And of course, Anita Sarkeesian is an obvious example, but there will be a great deal of others. There will even be, I guarantee you, a great deal of people who did nothing during the advent of Gamergate and other similar events like that, who did nothing when GW went woke, for example, to take a 40k example, who did nothing when Star Wars, Star Trek, people who are established within these communities who will now start to go, oh, well, now that wokeism is over, no. Those who did nothing are, in my opinion, pretty much in the same boat as those who definitely did a lot of something. Be mindful of all of this, is all I'm saying. Laugh at it, if you will, but don't think that at any point they're on your side here, even against a greater evil. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.